Welcome, everyone, to the Clemson Sports Show, where we talk everything Clemson Tigers. I'm your host, Joseph Hastings. Joined alongside me is Matt Connolly. And Matt, we were treated to an interesting game once again on Saturday. Clemson played Florida State to a 30-20 game. The Tigers came out on top. That score is a little bit misleading, though, because there was a late touchdown at the end. It was a lot closer than that. But overall, what were your thoughts on the game and what we saw from the Tigers?
Yeah, it was just a crazy game, kind of how we thought it would be. I think last year it's interesting. So the game last year gets canceled, and I think everyone pointed to like, man, a year from now, Clemson's just going to wipe the floor with Florida State, and they're going to be so mad and beat them by 100 and pour it on. And that's just not the team Clemson ended up having this year. And Florida State, after getting off to a slow start, has been pretty good. Had won 3 straight coming into Saturday's game. So it was about what I expected, honestly. Just a fairly low scoring. I know the final score ended up 30-20, but it was a fairly low scoring defensive struggle, which is basically what Clemson's played all year. I thought the offense did some things that were better at times. I thought DJ threw the ball confidently, made some pretty good decisions most of the night. Will Shipley, incredible game. I mean, he's a guy that was playing through some leg soreness. He was banged up. He got banged up a little bit during the game as well, just kept battling. So really impressed with him. And then the defense overall had a couple busts. The one huge play for the one score, or the one play touchdown drive was not good at all. But other than that, I thought they played pretty well. But man, just find a way to win. That's kind of how Clemson's going to have to win this year. It's not going to be these 40-point blowouts we're accustomed to. It's just find a way to win, and they were able to do that.
Yeah, it's just really interesting how the expectations for this program have drastically changed, because going into the season, like you said, the thought process was going to be that they would be able to win this game fairly easily. And after seeing Florida State struggle so early on in the season, starting off 0-4, that kind of was reaffirmed in a sense that, Clemson should be able to handle this team, but it just ended up being yet another game where they shot themselves in the foot, too many turnovers. With how well the defense is playing, and I said this in our last podcast, you can't give the other team that many opportunities. You have 3 turnovers, and then you had a fumble return for a touchdown, so you're essentially giving them points. This defense is playing their butts off, and it has to be demoralizing that no matter how well they play, the offense keeps on putting them in bad position after bad position. And that kind of brings me to our next topic, of course, DJ Uiagalelei. I don't know what to make of this game, Matt. I mean, 19 of 31, less than 200 yards passing again. He made some really good throws. I think this was the game where he had the most good throws. But then, again, he just had those bad mistakes. You can't throw that interception on 3rd and long. You can't take that fumble. You can't have that fumble that's returned for a touchdown. What did you think about DJ's play on Saturday?
Yeah. Let's start with those 2 bad plays, and then we'll get to the good. But it was interesting. He said that on that 3rd down play that it's just a one. That's his only read, his only option on that play, where he ended up being picked off, was to throw it to Joseph Ngata. And the throw was into double coverage. I mean, it was good coverage. It was into double coverage, but apparently that's the read on that play is his only option. So I don't know. Maybe go back to the drawing book with the playbook a little bit and maybe don't call that one again. But that was bad. The sack. His right tackle didn't do him a whole lot of favors. Just Jermaine Johnson didn't do a ton in the game, but he made one huge play and it ended up being a scoop and score. So those 2 plays were obviously not great, although definitely he wasn't the only one at fault on those plays. But the good, I thought he hung in the pocket and made some nice throws. I thought the back shoulder throws that he's missed a lot this year, they've just been wildly inaccurate. He did a nice job with those, hit Justin Ross on some big plays. So overall, I thought it was his best game. It was an improvement for sure. Still, like we said, a couple of the mistakes, but I think you can kind of see him getting better and better. And, I thought he looked more confident as well. And was also, by all accounts, according to his teammates and the coaching staff, did a much better job as a leader this week, stepping up, keeping guys engaged, being more vocal, that kind of stuff that you would like to see from your quarterback.
Yeah, and one thing we mentioned in our last podcast, I said that I felt the presence of Tyson potentially being in the game after getting snaps at Pittsburgh would put some additional added pressure on DJ, and that could potentially help him. I don't know if that was the case, but DJ definitely did play a lot more confident. He stepped into his throws with a lot more confidence and played with much more rhythm than he had in previous games. Just, there were a few plays. It wasn't just those 2 turnovers that he had. He had a couple where he just threw it out of bounds, a rolling right on long, deep passes that I just didn't understand. I didn't know where he was trying to go with it. It seemed like a throwaway, but then again, it seemed like he was trying to get it to his intended wideout. But if he plays every game like this the rest of the way, then, and we'll get to this later, I feel Clemson could potentially win out. And who knows from there? It depends on other teams, what they're able to do the rest of the season. They don't control their own destiny. But I did think DJ played his best game of the season, though there were still those turnovers that he needs to cut down on. Let's switch on over to another part of the offense, the running backs group. I predicted that they would get 200 yards in this game. They got 188, so they were close to that mark. What did you think about how the two true freshmen, Will Shipley and Phil Maffa, performed?
They were awesome. I mean, Shipley, let's start with him. Just like I mentioned earlier, he was banged up. He wasn't 100%. We had heard going into the game that he had gotten tweaked a little bit at practice this week, was going to try to play through it. And he confirmed Saturday after the game that, he wasn't feeling going into it, but you wouldn't know by watching him. I mean, he ran hard, gave it 100% every single play, was out there just getting after it. His touchdown run to kind of put the game away, or at least give Clemson the lead. Just incredible determination to get in the end zone. He's bouncing off of guys, throwing guys out of the way. I thought he was just exceptional. Made a nice grab. After dropping the ball last week at Pitt, had a nice grab over the middle on a ball that wasn't greatly thrown. So I was really impressed with him. And then Phil Maffa didn't do a ton outside of the one run, but man, that one run was special. 60 plus yards down the sideline, shoving guys out of the way, bouncing off of people. Clemson has to feel good about having those two guys around for at least the next couple of years. Just 2 true freshmen, just special running backs, and give CJ Spiller some credit as well, the running backs coach. I mean, that group I didn't think was running great at the beginning of the year, but he's really improved that group. They're playing a lot better right now. Shipley gave him a shout out after the game for the missed tackle, kind of getting by a guy. He said it was a move Spiller taught him. So give running backs coach CJ Spiller some credit as well.
Now, since you have a little bit of a better perspective on this than I do, where you were placed in the stadium, being up there in the press box, what did you think about how the blocking along the offensive line, not only the offensive line, but also the wide receivers and the tight ends? How do you think that, that element of the game played out for Clemson?
Yeah, it was probably a little bit better than it's been this year, but still not great. I mean, there were still some missed blocks on the outside. The first play of the game is just a missed block, and you end up getting your running back destroyed basically on a missed block. So, I mean, there were still plenty of mistakes, plenty of tackles for loss Florida State had. But I thought overall it was probably better than it has been, because at times this year it's just been a complete disaster blocking on the edge. So, man, I thought it was better, but not saying a ton. Still nowhere near where they hope to be.
Yeah, I thought it was better too from what I was able to see, though. There was one play, and it was in the third quarter. Don't remember the exact time in the game, but Walker Parks was supposed to block 2 people. And I look, I'm not a football guru. I'm not going to claim that I'm an expert in the sport, but that should never be the case. You can't have an offensive lineman blocking 2 people, at that point in the game. It was kind of mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and Clemson had a couple of guards go out during the game. I think, or I guess Trotter was playing center, but they had a couple of offensive linemen go out during the game and had to move some guys around. So that probably factored into that. My guess is one of those guards was supposed to pick up, and he ended up getting stuck with 2. But yeah, you never want that to happen. It's hard. Clemson's having a hard enough time blocking one guy, so you don't want to add another one in there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Well, let's switch on over to the other side of the trenches, the defensive line. We talked about it when planning this podcast, the defensive front 4 for Clemson against Pittsburgh. What was maligned for their performance against Pittsburgh, but bounced back really well against Florida State, had 6 total sacks. Miles Murphy, who didn't get the start on Saturday, had 2.5 sacks on his own. Talk to me a little bit about what you saw from the front 4 for Clemson.
Yeah, they just played great. I mean, they got after Jordan Travis all night. He's a guy that's really hard to sack. I think Clemson had 6 sacks. Xavier Thomas played well. Miles Murphy played well. Tyler Davis, Rukaroro, all those guys just got after it. They were subbing guys in and out, keeping guys fresh. So, it was interesting. They didn't announce Miles Murphy and Xavier Thomas as starters after they started the first 7 games of the year, which I thought was a little strange. But, Dabo said it was kind of a motivation thing. Like, they weren't happy with the way those guys played last week at Pitt, and they wanted them to come out and show, like, hey, this is what we're capable of, and earn their starting jobs back. And I think they certainly did that. So, yeah, I thought that was really probably the difference in the game. And just that speed up front is incredible. I mean, Jordan Travis is, one of the fastest quarterbacks around. He can run away from you. He's ran away from a lot of defenses this year. Same thing with Garrett Schrader at Syracuse, who had a ton of success on the ground going into the Clemson game. And then that Clemson defensive front really shut him down too. So I think just the team speed Clemson has on its defensive front is really elite. And if you do get by them, the linebackers are fast. I mean, Trenton Simpson, Barrett Carter had nice games. So really just a great performance by the defense, other than, like we mentioned earlier, the one big bust on the huge play down the sideline.
I was really impressed with Trenton Simpson. Glad that you brought him up. He was everywhere, especially early on in the game, just making tackles and, flying sideline to sideline. That's exactly what you want to see from a young player like him. And then overall, looking at this defense, I want to talk about what we've seen thus far from them. And in this game against Florida State, I absolutely commend Brent Venables and his group for what they've done with once again, with all the bad positions that the offense has been putting them in, for them to continue to bounce back, to go out there, to play hard with 100% intensity, especially in that game against the Seminoles, is just nothing short of spectacular. They were flying around. They forced 2 turnovers. Obviously the last one on the last play of the game that was scored for a touchdown, but they just kept on playing with a high level of intensity that, honestly, it's a shame that the offense is this bad, because if the offense was even middle of the pack, because, this Clemson Tigers offense is near the bottom of the barrel. If this offense was middle of the pack at the very least, I think this could be a playoff team. I really do. I think that the defense is that special. I want to toss that over to you. Do you think that's the case? If the offense was just 60, 65 in the nation in terms of total offense, do you think that they'd be a playoff team?
Yeah, I think they'd definitely be in the conversation. And the other thing is, like, not only, I guess, the offense struggling, but you can't score points for the other team. I mean, that's 3 times this year that Clemson's had either a pick six or a fumble return for touchdowns. It's happened in back-to-back games. I mean, it's just demoralizing for the defense. Brent Venables talked last week about after Pitt scored on the pick six to make it 21-7, that, his defense didn't respond after that. And he wasn't happy with the way they played from that point forward. But it's also understandable. You're in a 14-7 game, defense is playing well, and then the offense goes and gives up a touchdown for the other team. So you just can't have that happen. If anything, you need to play even more conservative with the defense playing as well as it is. Just say, hey, we may not go out and be the difference in why we win the game, but we're certainly not going to screw it up and be the reason that we lose the game. And it nearly was Saturday. I mean, you had the fumble return for a touchdown in the fourth quarter of a game that Clemson's defense had really played well in, and you really didn't need to take a chance there. I know early on in the year it was open up the playbook. Let's see more in the playbook. But right now, I think, man, just find a way to win these games and let your defense keep doing what it has been. And they didn't do that Saturday. Obviously, Clemson had the nice drive, turned around into the game. We mentioned the Shipley run. That was honestly just, I know people were really excited about the drive after the game and asking just, about confidence going forward and just what an impressive drive it was. Honestly, it was a great run. I'm not sure as much on the drive that the drive was overly impressive, just because it was a lot of Florida State penalties, and then, a 2-yard run by DJ and a 5-yard run by DJ. But great run by Will Shipley. If he can keep playing like that, Clemson's going to have a chance to win every game the rest of the year.
And once again, I go back to the expectations part of this Clemson team. It's drastically changed. Entering the season, it was playoffs. Now it's potentially no ACC title. And they're still in the conversation. So from the rest of the way out, they have to accept this new identity. And we talked about this in previous episodes. I don't want to belabor the point, but this team needs to be a 2-headed monster at running back or 3-headed monster. It depends on what they do with Phil Maffa once Kobe Pace comes back. They just use Will Shipley, Kobe Pace a lot. put DJ in good situations, use play action. Don't put him in a position where he needs to throw that one option route like you talked about to Ngata where there's double coverage, on a 3rd and long. Just put him in a good position, build up his confidence, and let the defense go to work. That's got to be the Clemson formula the rest of the season. It's not going to be flashy. It's not going to be the sexy offense that we've seen in recent years, but they need to accept this new identity. And going over to expectations, I know this kind of took us back a little bit when we heard it after the game here. I see you laughing. Dabo Swinney, head coach of the Clemson Tigers, said in his post-game media press conference that this was a top 5 win, not in the past 2 or 3 years of his career. Matt.
Yeah, he even went back to his time at Alabama as a player and counting his national title he won at Alabama as a player. So,
man.
Yeah, I mean, look, Dabo's been known to exaggerate some things at times during his career. And it was funny, like he mentioned in his opening press conference, and he was asked someone followed up and was like, wait, top 5, like all time? And he said, oh yeah, without a doubt, definitely in my top 5. So, as I tweeted after the game, Dabo's won too many games and too many big games for that to be anywhere near the top 5. I mean, you let's just look as a coach. So he's won 2 national titles. He's won 7 ACC titles. He's won, obviously, 7 division titles. He's won several big bowl games, beat LSU in a bowl game. He beat Ohio State multiple times in a bowl game, beat Oklahoma in an Orange Bowl to go to the playoff. I mean, yeah, you talk about the win over South Carolina after they had won. South Carolina had won 5 straight in the series. You talk about his first win over South Carolina that kind of got him the job. I mean, there's just so many other games that no offense, but there's so many more games that are more important and bigger wins for him than beating a 3-4 Florida State team that lost to Jacksonville State earlier this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. Maybe he meant this was a top 5 win against Florida State. I don't know, but this didn't make any sense. When I heard it, I was taking some photos and I was a little stunned. I was like, what's going on here? Did he actually say that? And, he doubled back on it. I think someone should ask him that question at his Tuesday press conference and make sure that, he still feels that way afterward, because there's just no way if this is the top 5 win, then I don't know what that says about the state of this Clemson football program and, the confidence they have in themselves. I mean, this was a game that Florida State should have never been in. You think about it. Clemson gave them 7 points. The offense had 3 turnovers overall. It shouldn't have been a game where it was that close to the very end. But, maybe Dabo will double back on it later this week. Who knows?
And I was just going to make one more point. I mean, just to be fair, Clemson has 14 guys that started the season that are now out for the year or that have transferred. They had 2 more offensive linemen go down Saturday. They had their number 2 running back go down Saturday. Their starting running back, kind of 1A, 1B with Shipley, was out with COVID. You have just so many things that have happened this year. They easily could have given up and kind of fallen apart after the strip sack fumble in the 4th quarter. So, I mean, I get where he's coming from, where it was a great win. You have a pretty big visitor in town in Arch Manning, which we'll get to later in a big recruiting weekend. And who knows, maybe Arch I'm just kidding. I was gonna say maybe Arch silently committed and he's like, hey, yeah, this is huge. No, that did not happen. That's about the only way I could see it being a top 5 win. But I mean, I was just gonna say, I get what he's saying as far as they just have had so much go against them this year that to find a way to win that game was huge. But it's just not top 5 huge.
Yeah, let's go on over to Arch. I mean, look, we had this planned out, but honestly, who cares about orders? You all don't know what we had going into this podcast. Let's go right into Arch. That was a big topic of conversation there. On Saturday, Arch Manning arrived. His father, Cooper, his mother, Ellen, was there. Dabo Swinney spent a couple minutes with them before he took the field, about 30 minutes before the game. So definitely a huge visitor there. Do you think that he liked what he saw on Saturday? Do you think that he saw an opportunity for himself to come in and potentially contribute early on? Or were there too many holes there with the offense still that may have concerned him, and not only him, but other offensive prospects considering Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, you spent time with Arch last week, so you would probably be better to answer this. I think it depends on what he's looking for. Like if he was looking for just an explosive offense, throwing the ball all over the place, putting up huge numbers, no, we didn't see that. If he was looking for a great game day atmosphere, we saw that at times Saturday, especially in the fourth quarter. Honestly, it was just kind of a weird vibe for a lot of the game. Even Dabo said afterwards that he was wondering where everyone was in the third quarter. I mean, a lot of people, it seemed like, left. So, kind of a weird vibe as far as the crowd goes. You mentioned Dabo talking with him and his parents before the game. I think, and like I said, you'll be better to answer this than me, but I think he's kind of looking for that family atmosphere, wants a good culture somewhere. He feels like he can connect. So I think that probably has more to do with, I guess, his thoughts on where Clemson stands right now, maybe than the play on the field. I mean, Texas, that which is thought to be his favorite at this point, had another loss Saturday. I mean, they're not having a great season by any stretch of the imagination. So, I don't know how much on-field play is factoring right now. I think it's probably more culture, family fit, that kind of stuff, where he feels at home at. And so, we'll see. I guess, what do you think of Arch is looking for after spending some time with him? What do you feel like is the most important thing for him?
Yeah, so it was very limited during my conversation with Arch on what I can actually talk about, but I learned a lot about him from his head coach, Nelson Stewart. And Arch is a kid who goes to each visit and he wants to talk to the teachers. He wants to talk to the academic personnel, the students on campus. He knows that every single program that he's considering is going to provide him excellent opportunities on the football field. Even with the struggles Clemson's having, his history says that they're going to bounce back, especially with the caliber of coaching staff that they have and how well they recruit. Arch is really looking for that culture, what they can provide academically, off the field. Can he envision himself being there 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it may be? And I also think that he's looking for a little bit of stability in the coaching staff. I know Steve Sarkisian just arrived at Texas, but based on what he did at Alabama and, the culture that he's going to attempt to build there at Texas, I think it's safe to say that he's gonna be there for a good 4 or 5 years. Can't necessarily say how long it'll be, but I do believe in Steve Sarkisian and what he can build at Texas. Ole Miss has Lane Kiffin. He's known as a quarterback developer. You have that connection there with Eli Manning, his uncle, and then Alabama and Georgia. Those are two of the top programs in the country right now, if not the top two. So it's obvious why he's considering them. So I don't think the season is going to necessarily determine where he ends up going. So as long as Clemson was able to show him that family culture, that family environment that has been applauded by so many prospects I've personally spoken with and the players on the team, I think they'll be fine. I'm not expecting him to make a decision until the spring. That's what his head coach told me as well. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know if it was necessarily a good showing, though, that some of the fans were booing DJ Uiagalelei. As a quarterback, you want to kind of feel supported by your fan base even when you're struggling. But, I can kind of see where the fans were coming at. DJ has had his issues this season. But, I don't know if Arch will take that into account. We'll see, though.
Yeah, and too, I think Clemson feels like academic-wise and on-field-wise, it's about as good as it gets. And they've done a great job of graduating players. They put guys in a position to be successful in the classroom. I know they put a big emphasis on education. So we'll see. And, stability in the coaching staff. I mean, Clemson's been as stable as anyone coaching staff-wise around. I know fans are not happy with the coaching staff at the moment, but, the coaching staff has been together forever. Dabo has kept his assistants. He's kept Tony Elliott. He's kept Brent Venables. Both of those guys have had several opportunities to leave. You're talking about, I know Tyler Grisham's a new coach coming in, receiver, just his second year, but he was on staff previously as a grad assistant. You got Brandon Streeter, who's been around a while, the passing game coordinator, quarterbacks coach, who has been there several years, helped develop Deshaun and Trevor Lawrence. So, yeah, I think coaching staff wise, if he's looking for stability and stuff, it's hard to argue with what Clemson's had over the years.
Absolutely, and kind of shifting gears now from Arch Manning to projecting the rest of the season, how we think it will play out. This was a big win over Florida State. It was an important win for them. But do you think this is enough did you see enough from Clemson on Saturday to make you convinced they'll win out? Or, at least put themselves in a position to get a good bowl game.
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing them beating Wake Forest just the way
Mhm.
Wake's playing right now. I think that team is scoring some points. Their defense is playing better now as well. Sam Hartman's having a great year at quarterback. So, man, I think that that game's going to be tough. I do think that they beat Louisville probably. I know we disagreed on that earlier in the
Yeah.
year. And we'll see. I mean, it's not going to be easy, but, Louisville lost again Saturday. I'm not sure how that crowd's going to be, how into the game the fans will be after another loss. I think Louisville's 4-4 now in the year, so
Mhm.
things aren't going great there. That they scored 13 points yesterday. Not Mikael Cunningham is really good, but the pieces around him aren't great. And like I said, only 13 points yesterday. So I think that Clemson finds a way to win that one. Probably loses to Wake Forest and wins against South Carolina and UConn. It's kind of how I see it going right now. What about you?
Yeah, I'm torn on this Louisville game just because of what I saw against NC State. Obviously Clemson played NC State a lot closer than Louisville was able to. That game between Louisville and NC State finished 28-13, by the way. So I don't know where I stand on that game just yet. I kind of want to see in the coming days what happens, what the injury report is, because you talked about it in our previous podcast. It was you or someone else asked Dabo Sweeney. It was you. Yeah. You asked him if there were any new injuries in the past 24 hours, and it wasn't necessarily a joke. It's the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, you're right. They had two more offensive linemen go down
Mm-hmm.
Saturday, and it's a position that already couldn't afford any more injuries. I mean, they just keep losing one after another. They had three, basically just as soon as the season started, they had three offensive linemen on scholarship out for the season. They've
Mm-hmm.
lost Bockhorst. They had Mason Trotter go out Saturday, and Will Putnam was banged up as well. So Putnam tried to come back in and play, but it was kind of iffy and not feeling great. And Trotter got taped up and was going to try to come back in and wasn't able to. So, man, that Dabo called it musical chairs on the offensive line, and that's probably the best way to describe it. Just guys coming in and out all year.
Yeah, and with this game too, one thing that concerns me is that it's a road game. Away from home, Clemson is 1-3 this season. The one win, 17-14 over Syracuse. I don't have enough confidence that away from home they're going to be able to get that added boost from the crowd that they need. Especially all of these games at home have come down essentially to the wire. And the crowd has played a huge part in them being able to get the win. I just don't know if they're going to be able to get that added boost against Louisville. I'm leaning toward the Cardinals right now, but I'm going to have to see on Friday what that injury report looks like. I definitely think they lose to Wake Forest as well, but they're going to beat UConn. They're going to beat South Carolina. I think that's going to be a closer game than most expect. But yeah, I can see Clemson going 8-4 this season. They won't make it to the ACC championship game, but get a good bowl game, win that. Hopefully it sparks some momentum in recruiting. But yeah, that's the expectation for this team right now. There's no playoffs. No playoffs are on the line, but they need to treat every single game from now on like it's a playoff game.
Yeah, for sure. And, they really want to extend that streak of 10 wins, 10 win seasons. I mean, 10 straight 10 win seasons is so hard to do. It just shows how consistent this program has been. So, if you can go and win 10 games in a year that I think everyone would agree has been a down year, if you can go finish strong and somehow win 10 games with a bowl victory, man, that'd be huge. So, yeah, I know that's a huge area of emphasis. It's just trying to get that 10 wins and just keep playing well, playing for each other, keep fighting, and try to figure out how to close strong here.
Yeah, they definitely need to close strong. And I'm going to circle back over to Arch Manning. There was one point I did want to bring up before we sign off here, and that's I think this is interesting. Matt, what was Arch Manning's first visit that he took this year after the dead period ended?
Was that Clemson?
It was Clemson. What was presumably now his last visit of the year?
Yeah, Clemson. Yeah, I know his high school coach told you that was probably going to be his last visit for the fall. So,
So I think that's very interesting. I don't know. I'm a very suspicious person when it comes to recruiting. Look, I can't go inside Arch Manning's mind. I can't go inside his father, his mother's mind. But you know what I can do? I can put the pieces of the puzzle together. And Clemson getting the first visit and presumably getting the last visit. I think that definitely works well for their favor there. That look, the on-field result wasn't what they hoped for. They wanted to drop 50 on Florida State, and I think in any other year they would have. but all they had to do was show him that family culture, that family environment. He was welcomed. He was laughing. He was smiling. We'll see what happens there, but I think that was worth noting. And if you all want to follow some of the content that we're going to be having on Arch, I'm going to be releasing my story with his head coach this upcoming week. I'm going to be releasing a story with Trevor Etienne's head coach this upcoming week, talking with some visitors. There's also a 2022 defensive end. Matt, should I say his name or keep it a surprise? I don't know. We're going to make this on the spot here. I'm not going to say it.
Let's not say it. Let's save that for the premium stuff.
Yep. So there was a 2022 defensive end I spoke with who said that he's talking with Clemson and it's been speaking with them over the past couple of weeks and he may visit. So I think that's going to be a story you all would want to keep your eye out for, especially since they only have one defensive lineman committed this cycle. And Matt's going to be providing a bunch of great content as well. He's going to be having his film review, going to be having a lot of stuff following this game against Florida State, what we learned, some things with Eric McLean, the former Clemson offensive lineman. So be on the lookout for all that great content coming up.
Yeah, for sure. And we're still doing our great deal. It's $1 for 4 months, man. It's crazy. That gets you through the football season, obviously, gets you through signing day. I mean, it's just a great deal. We encourage y'all to come try us, check us out, give us a shot. We really think you'll enjoy what you see and stick around. But yeah, $1 for 4 months, $10 for 1 year of access to ClemsonSports.com, our message board, and all of our content. So come check it out, guys. ClemsonSports.com.
And what better Christmas present than that? Full year of Clemson, premium access to our message boards, content, all of those kind of things that you want for the low price of $10. You can't beat that. So go ahead, sign up now. Link will be in the description below. Be sure to give this video on YouTube a like if you're listening to us on YouTube. If you're on our podcast page, go ahead and give us a follow as well. Till next time, for Matt Connolly, I'm Joseph Hastings. Thank you all for tuning in.